Are stranger days ahead for the New England Patriots, or did Bill Belichick pull off another unexpected haul? Day one, day two in the books of the 2022 NFL Draft. Day three still to come. I'm Mike Debate, and you're about to be locked into the Locked On Patriots podcast.
You are Locked On Patriots, your daily New England Patriots podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all of you Foxborough faithful, and thank you once again for making Locked On Patriots your first listen every day. Locked On Patriots, free and available on all platforms. Thank you for joining us here on Draft Weekend, your daily home for news, notes, and analysis infused with the occasional opinion on your six-time Super Bowl champions, the New England Patriots. I'm your host, Mike Debate. I cover your New England Patriots for Patriot Maven of Sports Illustrated. I am also your host of the Locked On Patriots podcast, which, of course, is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always here on Locked On Patriots, I am humbled by the company that I keep. And today, I keep the finest in company. You want draft breakdown, folks? We have it for you here today. I am so honored, so grateful that he chooses to join me each and every week here on Locked On Patriots. My Patriots Paisan, a columnist extraordinaire for PatsFans.com. In addition to that, folks, he is the co-host of not one, but two amazing podcasts, Patriots 4th and 2, and of course, One Patriots Place. Once again, my Patriots Paisan, Steve Balestrieri, joins me here today. Thank you, my friend, for joining me here on Locked On Patriots. Draft weekend can't get much better than this.
Yes, absolutely. And thanks for inviting me, as always. And we're definitely on the caffeine this morning because that was a late night Friday night, wasn't it?
It's been a late couple of nights for the New England Patriots, trading back from 21 to 29 in round one, and we're going to get to round one, folks, in just a moment. Round two, the Patriots making two picks, trading out and stockpiling for day three. A lot to break down here, folks, when it comes to your New England Patriots and their draft haul. We thank you for your patience yesterday. Unfortunately, we did not join you here on Locked On Patriots, but we have got an action-packed show to catch you all up and get you ready for the action on day three. Steve, let's dive right into it. And the Patriots' first round ended up being exactly what we expected. The Patriots trading down, trying to get value. They remained in the first round, and a lot of fans were starting to clamor about which player might end up in New England. Were they going to go with a big-time linebacker? Were they going to go with a defensive lineman? Were they going to go the route of going with a wide receiver? Were they going to go offensive line? Well, Steve, they went offensive line, and they went with an offensive lineman that not a lot of people had graded in the first round. And it's amazing. You may think that, Bill Belichick is going to bear the scarlet letter for that. Cole Strange out of the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, coming over at number 29. We've had the opportunity to speak with him. He's already been introduced at Gillette Stadium. Cole is saying all the right things, seems like the prototypical Patriot guy, but there's still a lot of people that have some issues with this pick. What was your reaction to it? Because as the resident voice of reason here, my friend, we want to hear some reasonable reaction. What was your thought on Cole, and what type of Patriot do you think he has the potential to become?
Well, at first, like everyone else, I was surprised to the point of shock, and I didn't like it at first because, let's face it, we all have our draft guys that we want. And right. I think, like a lot of people, I wanted them to attack the front seven. Mm-hmm. And we can get into that in a minute if you choose to. But it seems like they're pretty, at least with the linebackers, it seems like they're probably going to stand pat. We expected them to go early with that. But, looking at Strange, I mean, I thought he would go probably late second, early third round, because I had seen his name mentioned in a couple of places. But then I saw the tweet from Jim Nagy, who used to be with the Patriots, and he runs the Senior Bowl. And, he was saying this guy is a prototypical Patriot. He'd be a great fit. And I mean, he's really long for a guard. He's 6'5", very athletic. He's tough. And, you know, I go back to 2005 with Logan Mankins. I remember when Bill took Logan Mankins, that people were, as you put it, ready to hang the scarlet letter on him.
Absolutely, yeah.
And what was the things about Logan Mankins? What was said about Logan Mankins? I mean, if you go back, he's a good player, but Bill could have got him 2 or 3 rounds later.
Right.
So I'm now, you know, I'm in the boat now. I want to see this guy on the field and see what he can do. I think he's going to be the starting left guard on day one.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, you don't take a guy in the first round after trading down in the first round to try to justify putting this guy on the shelf for a little bit. I think he's NFL ready, and I think a lot of scouts have come out in defense of his since Thursday night's drafting Cole Strange. And what you're seeing now is what the Patriots were thinking. And we heard Matt Groh address this Friday night when he addressed the media after day 2. He said, you want toughness, you want strength. It doesn't get much tougher and stronger than Cole Strange. And look, the Patriots had difficulty blocking for the run at times last year. This kid is definitely a tenacious run blocker. He's got some very good quickness. He can really get into position, especially with the power runs. That's really where the Patriots have typically struggled, with guys that can power ahead and kind of bully opponents' offensive lines a little bit, and really kind of get to some of their opponents' front sevens. This is going to be an opportunity for this kid to get in there and be able to move. And I think that, this to me, I think is something that is a typical Bill Belichick move, but an atypical Bill Belichick move. You mentioned Logan Mankins a couple of years ago. You look at Kyle Duggar just 2 years ago. The people said the same thing about him. It was from a college that not a lot of people other than you and I had heard of before. It was a situation where he was coming in here with a higher, grade in terms of a later round grade that the Patriots chose to use earlier capital on, ended up working out pretty well. So I know a lot of people are saying, well, it's all about the value, and I don't care if he's a Pro Bowler or I don't care if he's a Hall of Famer. It's still a bad pick for the time that they picked it. I never understood that logic. I just can't for the life of me understand how, if you get the player that does what he needs to do and fills a major hole on this team, that it's a terrible pick without seeing him take a snap or watch him progress. Now, if he ends up being a bust, absolutely. Bill Belichick will be criticized for that, and rightfully so. But to say no matter what this kid does on the field that this is a terrible pick, I just can't understand that argument for the life of me. Steve, I know the Patriots had deficits on the offensive line. And obviously, like you said, you think he's going to be starting left guard day one. I agree with you. Is there a situation where you think they're not done necessarily with the offensive line? There's still some guys out there in subsequent rounds. To you, in your assessment, what do you think the Patriots need to do on the O-line to get into a position where they're heading into training camp in really good shape?
Yeah, I mean, they have 7 picks in rounds 4 through 7, and I think they're going to address tackle at some point during, today's festivities when everything reopens again. I really think they're going to address that at some point, and there's some talent out there, and I think when you're looking at the tackle position, they have their 2 starters back, Trent Brown, Isaiah Wynn, but both of them have had injury concerns. Your swing tackle is kind of up in the air. They had Justin Herron, so I think they're going to address that sometime today, where they'll bring in a tackle, mid to late round guy, and let him see what he can do out there.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there are a lot of tackles available. Murph and I have discussed several of them. Several of them have been mocked here on some of the great Musing the Draft Monday submissions from our great listeners. It'll be interesting to see how the Patriots choose to attack this, because they do have a good amount of draft capital to use on day 3. A lot of draft capital, as a matter of fact. 7 picks they're scheduled to make on Saturday. Not sure if they're going to make all of those, but we'll talk about that in just a moment. But I do agree that the offensive line will be addressed. And, bottom line, I think they have made a solid pick in Cole Strange. Maybe it is a situation where they did leave some talent on the board, but let's take a look and see what this kid can do. And he sounds like the prototypical Patriot right away. Introduced at Gillette Stadium on Friday afternoon, said all the right things, even in his conference call immediately following when he spoke with the media, mentioned how often and just how much he can't wait to get to work in Foxborough. That's what you want to hear from an O-lineman. Seems like the type of guy that's ready. He's on board. Mac Jones seems to love the pick. Apparently, the two of them had dinner on Friday night in Boston or in the surrounding areas. So good stuff. Already endearing himself to the quarterback. You got to love seeing that. Steve, the future of a lot of these prospects is bright, and we're going to continue to discuss that bright future because the Patriots made not one, but 2 picks on day 2. We're going to get Steve's thoughts on those picks in just a moment. But first, speaking of brightness, when your future is so bright, you want to wear sunglasses all the time. The glare from the brightness is just unbearable, but it can be bearable, and it also can be very stylish when you choose the product by our great friends over at Shady Rays. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that features $200 sunglasses for a fraction of the price. That means polarized lenses. That means well-constructed, durable frames and premium high-end finishes. Also, something that you won't find anywhere else, folks, is Shady Rays' Insane Protection Program. Shady Rays includes lost and broken protection on every pair. They'll send you a brand new pair if you lose them, no matter what happened. And if you give them a try and you don't love them, you'll pay nothing. It's as simple as that. Plus, when you do business with Shady Rays, 10 meals are donated to fight hunger in America when you shop with this great company. So, exclusively for our listeners, head to shadyrays.com and use the promo code LOCKEDON to get 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. That's code LOCKEDON for their best deal of the season. 50% off 2 or more pairs of Shady Rays sunglasses backed by over 150,000 verified 5-star reviews. ShadyRays.com.
Great stuff.
They are great stuff. They really
Yeah.
are. They're stylish. They're durable. Some of the best sunglasses out there, folks. I definitely encourage you to grab a pair. We know we're coming up on those great months of summer where you want to look stylish, but you also want to protect your eyes. It's extremely important to do that. You won't find a better product than Shady Rays, and I tell you that honestly. Definitely check these guys out. Steve, another thing that we want to check out here on Locked On Patriots is their Patriots Day 2 haul, because after all, it wasn't just Cole Strange that ended up coming to New England. Patriots making 2 picks yesterday. Patriots went into this with a need for speed. Boy, they did. They got need for speed in their first pick of the second round. 50th pick in the draft comes in from Baylor, and it is wide receiver Tyquan Thornton. Steve, before we get into Marcus Jones, who was the 3rd-round pick for the New England Patriots, when you look at what the needs were at wide receiver, you and I, we had talked about John Mechie ad nauseum. I think there were a lot of people that were upset or disappointed, I guess is the best way to put it, when Mechie ended up going to the Texans. Very interesting how some of the Bama guys are going to Texas now. You know, Nick Caserio's doing his homework. He's running the Bill Belichick playbook down there in Houston. But bottom line, the Patriots needed speed at the wide receiver position. And Matt Gross said this prior to the draft. We want to get stronger and we want to get faster. Got stronger in Cole Strange. This team got a lot faster in Tyquan Thornton. A lot of upside, some question marks, but definitely blazing speed. You cannot question that. Your thoughts on this pick? What ran through your head when you heard Tyquan Thornton is the Patriots' 2nd-round choice?
Well, actually, it's funny because when I saw that they had jumped up 4 spots, I was thinking to myself, they're going after a wide receiver, and they're going to take Velus Jones Jr. out of Tennessee because he's a slot guy. He's just a tad slower than Tyquan Thornton, and he returns kicks and punts.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking they're going to grab Velus Jones. This will be really intriguing. And then when I heard Thornton, I was like, okay, they went the other direction because he's taller. He's an outside guy. I mean, blistering fast.
Oh, yeah.
And
Absolutely.
4.28. I mean, that was the fastest of any wide receiver in the draft. So And I was like, wow, that's a surprise, because I was convinced in my head when they moved up they were going to take Velus Jones. But, you look at Thornton. I mean, he has tremendous ability to separate. He has great hands. And, I think he's an underrated route runner. He's not as agile as a lot of Patriots wide receivers are.
Mm-hmm.
But, for a spindly kind of thin guy, he's pretty tough. And he's not afraid to go over the middle. So I don't think he's just a vertical pass threat here. I was a little surprised by it. But again, they liked him well enough that they jumped up
Yeah.
to take him.
Absolutely. And look, if you're looking for a deep threat, folks, we keep hearing all the time, Steve, that Mac needs a deep threat. Give this guy someone that can take the top off of the defense, stretch the field. We hear all of the colloquialisms, as I like to call them here in New England, about what Mac Jones, and really, we heard this back to the days of Tom Brady. You need a quarterback that can do that. You need the quarterback needs a wide receiver that can do that and take the top off of defense. Yeah, this kid can do it. 4.28 40-yard dash time at the 2022 NFL Scouting Combine. I don't care what you think of the pick. That is lightning, and that is going to be well seen and well versed here in New England. Now, the question is, can you take that speed, harness it into an adequate or above average wide receiver at the NFL level? I think Thornton possesses the skill set to do just that, because he doesn't just use his speed to get past defenders. The more I look at this kid and the more I scout and see what's what, and I watched a lot of clips on him last night, admittedly, maybe not as much footage pre-draft as I should have. I did my due diligence on Thornton, but he wasn't one of the guys that I would have put on my sharp eye board to say, well, the Patriots are going to kind of zero in on this kid. I admit I probably should have, because he doesn't just use his speed, his straightforward speed. He uses very long strides. I had a colleague of mine text me last night when he was watching the same videos, and he said, this kid looks like a young Moss. He looks like, and I was like, all right, let's pump the tire. Let's pump the brakes here. Let's say you're comparing him to arguably one of the two greatest receivers to ever put on shoulder pads, the other being Jerry Rice and Randy Moss. That's a little bit of a stretch right now, but he does use that long slide. He can glide past defenders, and we've seen him do it at Baylor. Definitely, folks, I encourage you, check out the tape on this kid. You won't be disappointed. And he's that type of receiver that you're going to have to account for every time you're on the field. That's such a psychological advantage for Mac Jones, too, who likes to hit his targets accurately and exactly where the receiver can get it. I think it's an immediate upgrade, and I liked this pick for the Patriots. So, obviously there's always some concerns. There's always, matters of, whether or not he's going to assimilate. There's always questions about health and injury. But at the same time, if you were after a speedy wide receiver, this kid definitely fills the bill. And I think the New England Patriots will be a better team as a result of that. So, obviously, the Patriots needed more than just wide receiver, Steve. They went after the guard that everyone wanted them to go after, pursued that in the first round. The wide receiver, he was taken in the second round, and then the Patriots come to the third round. And arguably, my friend, this was going to be one of those picks that was going to be so crucial for the Patriots, because you could go front seven, you could go linebacker, of course, an extension of the front seven, and cornerback was a big position of need. They go with Marcus Jones out of the University of Houston. We had the opportunity to speak with Marcus very late last night on Friday. Said all the right things, the typical dream come true. I got the very distinct impression that he meant that sincerely and wholeheartedly. I know a lot of people scoff at athletes when they say that, but this kid sounds excited to be a New England Patriot. A lot of upside, pretty good prospect in the slot. Another one that really can be a beast in the return game. Your thoughts on Marcus Jones? Did the Patriots get this right here, or do they still have some work to do at corner?
Well, I think they got it right with Jones. I mean, when you look at the pick, he's a little on the short side, but he's very, very athletic. He can play in the slot. He returns kicks. He even can play, because he's a converted wide receiver. He can play offense. So, I mean, this guy is as versatile as they come. I love the pick myself because, again, it was a little bit of a surprise. But then when you look at it, this guy can do so much. And I think fans are going to end up loving this guy because, he's electric, in the return game. So I look forward to seeing. I think he's going to see the field right away in the return game. So, and we'll see how he does, on defense. But the guy, he can play. I mean, you look at the stats he put up down in Houston. He was very, very good on defense. But I think, initially at least on special teams, he's going to be a difference maker.
Yeah, he will be a difference maker, folks. If anybody is wondering where this kid fits in immediately, Steve hit the nail right on the head. I think in the return game, this is your guy. You lose Gunnar Rashevsky, you gain Marcus Jones. And I love Gunnar, mostly for the memes. But no, I really did like his game, and I like the player, and I wish him nothing but the best in Pittsburgh. But the Patriots now have a guy that does have the capability of breaking for the big play. They've brought that back in, even losing that in Gunnar. And look, this kid has got the opportunity to be electric. Go back and take a look at Houston's game against SMU. They were 19th ranked at that point earlier this year. 19 seconds left. Jones burns the field 100 yards for a touchdown on a return. You want to talk about guys that can step up to the plate. This is against a nationally ranked team. You're up against the clock. You need a score. And this kid is able to dial back, catch the ball deep in territory, full length of the field, and return it back for a touchdown. He led the nation 337 yards and 17 punt returns. So it's not just the kick return game where this kid has prowess. He can be a punt returner. And again, like you said, he can be a very promising prospect in the slot. I think that's exactly where he fits in very well. There'll be a depth piece on the secondary, but I think in terms of your return game, I think this kid has got the skill level to be able to do it. So, Steve, parting thoughts on day 2. What are your thoughts on the New England Patriots, the 2 newest New England Patriots that'll be wearing that uniform in Foxborough this summer and this fall?
Yeah, again, they weren't the guys we expected them to take, but isn't that every draft? I mean, Bill always does that, right? He takes the guys that we don't see coming, and I think they're. I'm intrigued. I can't wait to see what they can bring to the field. And a lot of the same criticism that was leveled against Strange was leveled against Thornton. They could have had this guy later on, but they thought enough of him that they wanted to move up to take him.
Right.
And, I think that, again, you're going back to Matt Groh's comments last night. Right after the Patriots took Thornton, 3 of the next 4 guys off the board were all wide receivers. So I think they were onto something there. And we'll just have to see how these guys play out. I think it's very intriguing, and we'll see how it all works out. But as usual, Bill zigged when everyone else was zagging.
He really does. Andrew Callahan of the Boston Herald had, I think, the tweet of the weekend so far when Cole Strange was selected. He says, I'll give the Patriots one thing. He says, they just do not give a bleep when anybody else thinks. And bottom line, they fill their roster very well. And I don't think there's anybody that can argue the success that the Patriots have had. I know a lot of people want to kick some dirt on Bill Belichick right now for what he's done. But folks, it's a process. Let the process play out. Let's see how these guys are able to do. And if they get the prowess out of these guys on the field that we expect, this could end up being a very good draft for the Patriots. That being said, I understand the argument that if they don't perform, then there is going to be some cause for criticism. And you know what, Bud? That's one of the things we love about this business, right? It's always an opportunity to discuss, right. Never a dull moment in Foxborough. Well, folks, the Patriots have 2 days in the books, but a big day 3 on tap. 7 picks that the Patriots are right now scheduled to make. Will they make them all? And if they do, who will come into Foxborough? Who does Steve have his sharp eye on? We'll discuss that in just a moment. But first, folks, you know that the next holiday on the docket is Mother's Day, and it's a special day for all of us that want to celebrate the special mother in our life. BlueNile.com allows us to celebrate all of life's special moments. From the creating of the custom engagement ring for your significant other, or gifting a classic and timeless jewelry piece for mom, all at prices you won't find at a traditional jeweler. Whether mom prefers a statement piece or an everyday subtle elegance, BlueNile.com has the jewelry options for every mom. Shop high-quality classic diamond earrings, elegant tennis bracelets, or gemstone pendant necklaces. This Mother's Day, give mom something she'll treasure forever with fine jewelry from BlueNile.com. And Locked On Patriots listeners get $50 off a $500 purchase. This podcast is exclusive, only good through Mother's Day, so use the promo code Locked On. That's LOCKED. Plus, every order is insured, it ships free, and it arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever peace. Go to BlueNile.com today. Patriots fans, we're about to wrap things up here and get you ready for day 3 of the 2022 NFL Draft. I am joined by my esteemed good friend, columnist extraordinaire of PatsFans.com, the great Steve Balestrieri. We've already talked Cole Strange, we've already talked Tyquan Thornton, and we've talked Marcus Jones. But the New England Patriots, thanks to a couple of draft trades, will have a pretty good haul on their hands coming up in day 3. The Patriots right now scheduled, or slated, I should say, is probably a better choice of word, to make 7 picks in this round on Saturday. Now, Steve, you and I both know that the Patriots love to move around the board. I expect them to continue to do that. I don't think they're going to make all 7, but right now they have 3 4th-rounders, 3 6th-rounders, and a 7th-rounder. There are some guys left on the board. I think maybe some questionable, calls about guys that just, haven't fallen through the cracks. We saw some talent slip to the 3rd round, late in the 3rd round. Obviously, Malik Willis coming to mind, Nakobe Dean coming to mind. We heard that might be from some medicals. As a matter of fact, it almost is confirmed that that was the reason for his slide. But when you look at the day 3 slate compared to what the Patriots need assistance in, where do you think they will target? Where should they target?
That's a great question. I'm looking, as we talked about. There's still some good offensive linemen out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's one guy that I picked in a mock draft is Darian Kennard from Kentucky, and a lot of guys from Kentucky getting picked up. But I think that they'll still address some of those needs that we spoke about. I was looking in some of my mocks at a potential replacement for James White as a 3rd down back. I think you could see that coming. The guy I really like, James Cook, the Bills took. So out of Georgia, that was a good pick.
That one hurt a little bit. That was a great pick for them. That really was.
Because I really liked him.
Fills a need, and that kid is versatile. Yeah.
And again, nobody complained because he was slated to go in the 4th round, right?
Right. But it's Bill.
When they took Bill, him, it was all of a sudden there was a great pick. So what does that tell you? Anyway, I think there's still some players out there in the offensive line. I think they still need to address defensive line. Yeah. There's a couple of guys that are out there, maybe a Perion Winfrey from Oklahoma.
Yep.
Davis from UCF could be of interest to them. But, and I expect them to maybe address wide receiver again or cornerback. There's a couple of guys that have been kind of mocked to them. There's obviously Josh Jobe from Alabama, which
absolutely.
And of course, how can we go without mentioning either Bo Melton or the other kid from Alabama at wide receiver? So
Slade Bolden.
Slade Bolden. I mean,
the second coming of Julian Edelman, and a lot of people are hoping that's what it's going to be. He's going to be Max Julian. I think that's the national narrative out there.
Yeah, and that punter from Arizona State still out there. So
yeah, I think
I'm not going to say his name because then Bill won't take him.
Yeah, without any question, Alex Barth of 98.5 The Sports Hub, a good friend of this program, good friend of ours, came out with a tweet this morning and says, "Happy, punter." He put the punter. I'm going to be superstitious with you, but I'm not going to say his name. But let's put it this way: this kid, we talked about booming punt, Steve. We'll be talking about this kid from San Diego State for a good long time if he is the guy. And I agree with you. I think there's a lot of options. I think the Patriots will package a couple of these picks, maybe for subsequent years or maybe to move up or down. I don't think they're going to make all 7, but I have the distinct impression they're going to make more of them than they're going to trade away. They've got 7. I think they'll make at least 5 of these, and there is still some talent left on the board. God, you mentioned the cornerback position. They may not be done. They had guys like Jack Jones in from Arizona State for a visit and a workout, and met with him a couple of times. You mentioned Josh Jobe, Jalen Armour Davis from Alabama as well. I think he might be early off the board in day 3, but you never know. The Patriots could go that direction as well. Zion McCollum has gotten a lot of press there. I think linebacker position is something that Patriots fans have to be prepared for the fact that they may not go in that direction. I know Darian Beavers is still out there, and a lot of people say he's that prototypical Hightower clone, that guy that just fits in so well to what the Patriots do. But listening to Matt Groh talk about Cameron McGrone last night leads me to believe that they have very high hopes for this kid, and they should. I think there's a lot of great film on there. You talk about speed, agility, ability to get after the quarterback and transform the middle part of that defense. He has the ability to do it. So he may be their rookie draft pick, so to speak, at the linebacker position. The Patriots may feel that there wasn't that surefire guy that they want to invest early round draft capital to lock up. So interesting stuff when it comes to the Pats. I know there's still a lot out there. Bottom line, Steve, at the end of day 3, when the Patriots are done with this draft, what do you expect, as a whole? Not really just from the draft class. I'm not going to put you on the spot there, but do you expect that they'll have filled most of their holes, or are there still going to be question marks on this team that lead you to believe that they are going to work the wires on that next wave of free agency prior to these offseason workouts starting?
Yeah, I do think they're, I think they're going to fill most of their holes today. And then, the subsequent undrafted free agents, which they have a really good
Absolutely.
track record of,
They do.
filling. So I think that they're going to do most of that, but I wouldn't be shocked to see them, sign 1 or 2 veteran free agents that are out there right now.
Mm-hmm.
One guy, I just, I don't want to say it because it'll jinx it, but Ndamukong Suh wouldn't be a bad addition to the defensive line. Bring him in for a flyer for a year, and put him next to Barmore inside, and now you have 2 really good run stuffers inside. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, going to linebacker, like you said, I think, I saw Matt Groh's comments last night.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually writing about that for my Sunday column. I think they, Raekwon McMillan, who they added last year, Anthony Jennings, Josh Uche, those guys, they've all invested in them. And I'm thinking that maybe they think these guys are going to be just fine.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, you look at the type of emphasis that Matt Groh placed on this, and I think that he was very emphatic in saying that he believes that there is a lot of speedy talent at the linebacker position on this roster currently. You mentioned Jennings. I think a lot of times he's the forgotten guy in that shuffle, and all of a sudden, do you just give up on him? The Patriots invested draft capital in him a couple of years ago. You and I were very high on Anthony Jennings coming out of Alabama, and we still are, and I think he can still be a contributor. You look at Cam McGrone, we just talked about him, obviously, and Uche, to me, is a guy that is facing that make or break season. Chase Winovich went into it last year. It didn't end up working out. He gets jettisoned. I can see a similar fate for Josh Uche if he doesn't come through this year. The difference is I think Uche is a much better fit in this defense than Chase ever was. I think it was a little bit of fish out of water, maybe trying to force a square peg into a round hole, but I look forward to seeing that. So ultimately, I think it's going to be interesting. And you mentioned the undrafted free agent routes, folks. Don't forget that undrafted free agents are a big part of what this team does. Just because you don't hear that name chosen on draft day doesn't mean the Patriots still may not get in touch with him and get him signed. And they usually start pretty fast and furious. I know we only had 1 last year with Quinn Nordin, but this year could be a little bit more active, and you might see these guys sign as early as this evening after the draft wraps up. Well, Steve, we're going to wrap things up here today and get everybody ready for day 3. But I thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule on a weekend to join me here today. Very quickly, Bud, before I let you go, let everyone know where they can find you, interact with you, and what we can expect in the coming days from draft coverage from the great pen and great voice of Steve Balestrieri.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at SteveB7SFG, just like right there. And I write for PatsFans.com, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram, LinkedIn, all under Steve Balestrieri. And yeah, I'm already starting to write about the analysis of the draft. Obviously, we have a lot to do later on this evening after the draft is over, but I think that's the main thing we're all going to be looking at. And I look at Cameron Grone this year as a 2022 draft pick.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Based on what we're seeing and based on what we've seen, I think the Patriots could have done a whole lot worse in that regard. Big things coming from Cam McGrone. I was high on this kid last year, and I still would love to see what he can do in a Patriots uniform this year. Steve, what can I say? We're going to have you back here on Tuesday to help break down all of this after our good friend Thomas Murphy gives his thoughts on the draft. Murph and I are going to muse that draft on Monday, give you our grades. Yeah, folks, this might not be pretty, but just tune in because I don't want to put words in Murph's mouth. In the meantime, I thank my good esteemed friend, my Patriots paisan, Steve Balestrieri, for joining me here today on Locked On Patriots. Don't forget, draft coverage all weekend long on the Locked On Podcast Network. Smash the subscribe button to the Locked On YouTube page. You're going to see all of my great colleagues and so many great stories, analysis, everything you can think of right there. Keep it here for your draft coverage all weekend long. In the meantime, I'm Mike Debate. I once again thank you for making Locked On Patriots a daily part of your New England Patriots coverage, as well as your first listen every day. On behalf of Steve Balestrieri, thank you, my friends. Stay safe, stay well, be the change you wish to see in the world. Enjoy day 3 of the 2022 NFL Draft. We'll see you back here on Monday.